Rosalía, LUX, album review. Let's talk about it. Oh Lord. Where the hell am I? Southwest Florida. God damn. 1 minute I'm fucking about to make an album review, and the next minute I'm fucking getting smacked and I'm waking up in fucking a field. Goddamn field. Like, where the fuck even am I even goddamn at? Lord goddamn mighty. Well, I better find somewhere to sit down and fucking record this album review. Well, I'm stranded in the middle of nowhere, and I just got done listening to my first ever international album for an album review, guys. I think I've never reviewed an album that's not in English. And, you know, I was hoping maybe we get a title that's in English, maybe we get something. The only thing that you get that's English in this whole entire album is maybe, if you're lucky, a few phrases. So, that's definitely something, guys. But welcome to the show, guys. We got Rosalía. Now, I've been checking out this album for about, 5 days now, alright? It's been a while. Ever since it first dropped, I listened to the whole album all the way through. And I've been saving my thoughts for this moment to talk about this goddamn shit. So let's get into it, guys. Before we even get into the album review, I have to go over the format because honestly, it's been quite a while since I've done an album review. And there could be, some international people that don't even know how we do this. So we're going to go over 3 basic points. Also, we're going to talk about my initial thoughts going into the album. And then we're going to go over every single track, and we're going to rate every single track out of 5. And then I'll give you my overall thoughts, and then we'll have a score at the end of how I'm feeling. Now, initial thoughts going into this album, I was a little skeptical. I can't even lie. I mean, look, when I see on Twitter for the week before, this is not even the week when the album is coming out. This is the week before, and there's early, listenings happening. There's, early moments, I guess, where websites are getting opportunities to review this album early, and they review this album early, and they're giving it, 10 out of 10. 9 out of 10. I even fucking saw they gave this album a score of 100. 100? What the fuck does that even mean? Y'all think my 1 out of 10 score doesn't make sense? How the fuck is this album 100 out of 50 or whatever the fuck that shit had on there, So, I guess, I was a little skeptical going into it. And then, calling this album perfect. And the single that came out is called Burden, and I check out that single, and I did not like that single at all. I thought the classical elements were way overdone. I mean, it felt like I was listening to fucking screaming-ass vocals. I mean, Lord goddamn mighty, And honestly, I thought the classical sound was not going to be fitting the vibe, because Rosalía was just fucking screaming on that one track, so honestly, my thoughts were a little bit, I was a little bit, skeptical. I was wondering if I was even going to enjoy this album. And I mean, the worst part about it is, none of this shit's in English. So if I don't even enjoy this, I'm not even going to understand what the fuck this shit even means. So that's definitely something. But I kept an open mind, guys, and going into this album, I have to say, besides that leading single, I'm quite surprised. So let's get into talking about this album, guys. Starting off with the production and features. I think the way they use the classical sound here is pretty beautiful. I like the piano, the keys, the strings on here, the background vocals. All of it's done beautifully here. I was wondering how it was going to sound. I think it's actually used really well, I really enjoy what I'm hearing, and we also get some opera-style vocals, which was pretty cool. I didn't know Rosalía could hit vocals like that. I mean, guys, if you want to do opera-style vocals, you have to be able to sing your fucking ass off. You have to be able to hit a range that you don't see in the big 2025. And now we're going to be going into 2026. You definitely do not fucking see that shit at all. So, I was quite surprised that Rosalía was, easily able to do it. Really great production on this album. I really love the sounds on here. You know, I hear some double bass. You know, I hear some really good violins that just have a lot of character. You know, those pianos, it's not the simple piano loops. The piano actually has some personality. You know, you have constantly key changes. You have moments where the piano's switching up. The violins are switching up. The guitar, even the fucking guitar is switching up. I mean, everything about this album is absolutely switching up, which is pretty good. Now, vocals, and we'll get into my favorite tracks. Now, I had a few favorite tracks on here. You know, I might save, you know, some of my other favorite tracks for once we get deeper into the talking about the whole entire album. But I will talk about one favorite track, which, you know, was my favorite on here. Every time this song came on, it was always towards the end of the album, but every time it came on, I was like, damn, this shit's good as hell. I'd say the vocals are done beautifully on this album. There's some really great moments, you know, when you know keys are being held out, when you know vocal runs are easily being done, you know, it's a lost art. You know, when you listen to music now, these days, it's very much of a lost art where, you know, you're actually having the artist to be able to hold out their vocals, to be able to actually have some real range, you know, not needing to use the auto-tune, you know, not needing to use the computer to, you know, keep their vocals sounding a little decent. Because, as you know, if you can't sing good and you try to do a pitch that you can't do, you're going to easily be able to tell. You know, when you try to hold out a note and you can't breathe, or you can't, you know, actually keep that note on your chest, you're actually going to be able to hear that. That's why a lot of artists use a lot of auto-tune, a lot of effects to really hide that stuff. And honestly, you know, sometimes that's a good thing. You know, but if you're actually going to make, you know, the classical sound and you can actually, you know, carry yourself like this vocally, that's really cool in my opinion. The vocal switch-ups, too, just go absolutely insane. Again, them opera-style vocals. There's a few tracks where this style is being used like 3 or 4 times in this whole entire album, which is pretty cool. You know, it's not just a one-off thing. You know, it's not like when Doja Cat... We'll talk about Doja Cat, when she did this 80s type album. And one of my biggest complaints about the 80s type album was she did some vocal runs, but she made it where you could barely hear it. You know, she did it in the background because it sounded fucking terrible. It sounded bad. You know, if you actually turn the fucking volume up and listen to her fucking screeching ass singing vocals, that shit fucking sounds terrible. Because she can't fucking hold her vocals out like that. It was proven with that 80s album. This one, though, you actually got that. Background vocals, too, really just help this track out. You know, help all the tracks out. I'm not even just talking about one. The whole fucking album. You know, there's moments where, you know, you have these deep background vocals. You have these higher pitched ones. You have this opera-style background vocals, too. You also have that choir sound on some of the tracks really backing up the album. Really cool in my opinion. The way the flow changes, I really love how, you know, we're also getting vocal switch-ups, but we're also getting flow switches. And when you have that on an album, it's just going to make the whole experience way better. You know, let's throw Doja Cat back under the bus, because why not? That 80s album, alright? Every single track had a rap verse. And the rap verse, the same exact flow was being used for every single track. Do you know how boring that is? Do you know how fucking monotonous that can get in your ears when you're listening to the same flow for like 12 tracks? I mean, goddamn, switch it the fuck up. You know? You actually have some really good flow changes on this album. And we even have instrumental switch-ups. You know, it's honestly a lost art sometimes that I fucking talk about this shit. You know, I'm like, you know, can the piano not sound the same for fucking 2 minutes straight? Can the piano actually switch up? Can the violin, you know, maybe fucking go a little bit of a higher pitch? You know, we're like 2 minutes in the damn song. That's not a problem on this album. I mean, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, we're getting a whole switch up. You know, you're getting drums, you're getting guitar, you're getting all these elements that are constantly switching up, constantly keeping fresh. And that's really cool. You know, tracks like, you know, Dias and Stalker, This track right here, I really enjoy this track because, one, the hook is really addicting to listen to, really nice, but also, you know, you have a really good instrumental switch up, and you have really good gritty bass, but then you have this switch up where, you know, more of that violin, that choir sound comes in, and it's a really great grand switch up that happens. All right? So yeah, guys, you know, I really enjoy the vocals, favorite tracks on here. We'll get into more of that stuff, but now, you know, we've talked about, you know, my points. I went over my 3 overall points and how I'm feeling about this album. But now, we're going to review every single track. There is 15 tracks off this album. You know, it's not even that long, too. Like, this is like a 40-minute album, which is pretty cool. Let's get into it, guys. Starting off with the first track, track number 1, we got Sexio Violenzo Latinas. I really like the production here. You know, those double bass violins are definitely a highlight. I like how they change the time and energy every time they come on. You know, piano is pretty good here. You know, this is a nice take on a more ballad-like song. You have different instrumental switch-ups too. The singing is top-notch. Nice intro to get things going. I would say for a good intro track to get you settled into this album is pretty good. 4 out of 5. Next track. I did a review for this, you know, literally the other day. So if you want to go check out a full, like, you know, my really full thoughts about this track, because there was a lot to these tracks, then you can go check that out. But we got track number 2, Recula. Really good instrumental on this one. You actually have some drums here, which is pretty cool. I like that glitch kind of effects that are in the background, just kind of helping this song to make it, you know, a little bit more abstract when you're listening to it. I like those background vocals too. The hook too. I think this is one of the top-notch hooks that can easily get stuck in your head. And also, you also have those opera style vocals, which are pretty cool, and they're amazing. So 4 out of 5. Now track 3, we got Divinize. One of the best instrumentals I've heard. You know, you have this build-up that just sounds really good, and then there's this different layer for each verse, you know, each part of the hook. You start out with a piano and a guitar. I like how we get a complete guitar switch up. The drums start coming in. There's even a string switch up too. I like how, you know, you can kind of hear them kind of beating the back of the guitar, which is a pretty cool sound. And, you know, I really love the hook. You know, it's addicting. It gets stuck in your head. Verses are nice, too. That flow switch is really good. This is a really good song, too. 4 out of 5. Now, track number 4, we got Porcelana. I really like the dark production. And this kind of that dark and classical fusion. I love it when genres can fuse together. If you can fuse genres together, you can make something on your own. You know, going into 2025... you know, as music's going to keep evolving, music's going to keep changing, etc., etc., etc. A lot of the music that you've heard in the past is going to be regurgitated, is going to be used again in later times, because nothing that an artist makes is entirely original. So, if you're going to do this type of stuff, one of the best things you can do is fuse genres together to make your own sound, to make your own song, to make something of your own. And I really like that. Feels really good. The beat is gritty on here. The bass is really heat. You know, the violins, I like that high-pitched violin that's in here. The piano is fast and fire. The hook is addicting. Easily gets stuck in your head. The scared part is pretty good too. But I think one of my favorite parts, and I really had to keep checking the comments to understand if this is really Japanese. Now, there is 13 different languages on this album. But I'm going to say this, the Japanese part, it kind of threw me off guard, you know, when I first heard the album, but I'm not going to lie, the Japanese part goes fucking insane, alright? The flow switches are crazy, alright? The way she's flowing with these Japanese fucking, these Japanese words are crazy, alright? This song's really good. This song is really goddamn fire. I'm about to easily have to give it a 5 out of 5. Now, track number 5, we got Mio Cristo and Diamond 80. This is definitely more of that kind of chill, kind of piano and classical instrumental. I really like the build-up here. The violin is really intense. The standout is definitely the hook. I like the higher pitched vocals on here, and overall the opera style vocals are definitely a standout. 3 out of 5. Track 6, Bergadin. I don't like this track. Alright, every time this track came on the album, I skipped it. I don't want to fucking hear it again. Alright, this shit was like nails on a goddamn chalkboard. Alright, I don't want to listen to that song ever again. 1 out of 5. Now, track 7, we got La Perla. Really nice, addicting hook. The vocals are definitely a standout, and it's one of the more beautiful tracks off this album. I really like La Perla. It sounds really good. Really addicting too. The lyrics, the storyline, it's all really good here. 4 out of 5. Now the next track, track number 8. I apologize. Track number 8 is Mondo Nuevo. I like this track. It kind of gives me 50s movies vibes with the instrumental. It's dark, beautiful. Those strings are kind of commanding. It's a really good vibe. The vocals are powerful and really strong on this one too. This is a really good song too. You know, not my favorite off here. Nothing like that, but it's a really good track. 3 out of 5. The next track is D Moraga. One of my favorite hooks off this album, and it's track 9, by the way. The vocals are addicting. Those background vocals are seeping through, adding even more layers to the hook. Strings are pretty good. The beat is engaging. Overall, really fire. 4 out of 5. Now, track number 10 is DSN Stalker. This track right here, every time it came on the album, I was like, holy shit. You know, this track just sounds beautiful. I mean, the hook is addicting. Everything to it was really good. Lord Almighty. Alright, the way she switches her vocals, the way she also does that vocal run at the end of the hook, I mean, just really good. 5 out of 5. Can't even lie. Track 11, we got Le Yuger. This track right here is pretty good too. You know, I was honestly thinking, is it just going to be that piano ballad style? No. It's that piano ballad style on fucking crack cocaine, alright? You know, its violins are fucking raging here. You even have a lot of instrumental switch-ups, too. I like those, like, little, like, drums that are in here, too. 4 out of 5. Really good track, too. This one, too, is a Simeon Blanca. This is like a wine or something like that. Track 12. This one's really good, too. Like, this is a really sad, emotional track. It's kind of like, you know, the lyrics are really good, too. It's kind of like, you know, I'm going to drink, my wine is so good. The wine is made of gold. That means my life is going to be gold or whatever, you know. It's a really emotional track about relationships. It's a really nice track, 5 out of 5. Now, track 13, we got La Rumba de lo Perdon. We also got some features on this one. I think they're more like background vocals, you know. You hear them in the, you know, the end of the song. I think they did their thing on here. They sound really good. This one's also an easy 4 out of 5, too. I really enjoyed that track, too. And then the next track, track 14, is Memoria. We also got a feature on here. I think one of the standout things about this track is the feature. I think the feature was absolutely beautiful on here. You know, those keys are gorgeous, too. Just a really good track. 5 out of 5. I really enjoyed that one, too. And then the final track, we got 15... Megalonus. This track right here is a really nice kind of cap off. You know, not a lot of albums can have good cap offs to end off your project. You know, sometimes they just throw in a random ass track. You know, sometimes they just, you know, the final track is usually fucking ass. So I really like how the final track really kind of caps the journey off that you've been listening to. I really enjoy those vocals. Beautiful instrumental, really good. And then you also have really deep emotional lyrics that are, you know, pretty sad. You know, I do like too that, you know, the vocals are really intense. You know, they keep getting more intense. There's so many good vocal runs that happen on here. Overall, just really good in my opinion. Guys, 4 out of 5. Overall thoughts going into this album. For my first ever international album review, I would say this is definitely one of the more better albums that I've checked out this year, which is kind of surprising. You know, going into that first single, I was really scared. I can't even lie to you. Besides one track on this album has definitely lived up to all the hype around it. And the early reviews definitely cooked. You know, I had to hear the album for myself, but after listening for like 5 times fucking straight, you know, this is one of the best albums in 2025. And a really nice classical pop fusion. Good ass album, guys. Nothing to really complain about here. You know, I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna try to figure out how to get back home, being fucking stranded out here, Lord goddamn mighty. But overall, I'm gonna give this album an 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10, guys. What y'all think about this album? Did you like it? Did you hate it? I don't know. Let me know. If you're on YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you get your podcast at, make sure you follow. Turn on notifications, guys. We're dropping new content every single day. And I'll see y'all later. You have a good one. Yeah, guys.